What if I told you that the biggest sign a woman thinks about you every day is not what most men believe? It's not always the constant texting, it's not always the compliments, and surprisingly, it's not even her saying she misses you. Most men spend months trying to decode female behavior while completely overlooking the signals that matter most. They focus on obvious actions and miss the subtle psychological clues happening beneath the surface. And that's exactly why so many men become confused when a woman suddenly develops strong feelings seemingly out of nowhere. But here's the truth: feelings rarely appear overnight. Long before a woman openly admits she's interested, something much deeper is already happening inside her mind. She's thinking about you, more often than you realize, and the fascinating part is that her behavior starts changing in ways that seem insignificant at first. Tiny actions, small habits, subtle patterns. Most men never realize this. They see these behaviors every day and dismiss them as meaningless. Yet female psychology tells a very different story. You see, when someone occupies a significant amount of mental space, their brain naturally begins creating emotional connections. The more frequently a woman thinks about you, the more familiar you become. The more familiar you become, the more emotionally important you feel. This process often happens without her consciously recognizing it. And that's where things get interesting, because the signs we're about to discuss aren't random. They're rooted in powerful psychological mechanisms that influence attraction, attachment, and emotional investment. Some of these behaviors may seem ordinary, others may completely surprise you. In fact, one of the signs later in this video is so subtle that most men mistake it for disinterest when it's often the exact opposite. Pay close attention because this changes everything. Imagine this. A woman is going about her day. She's working, talking with friends, handling responsibilities, living her normal life. Yet somehow your name enters her thoughts. Maybe because something reminded her of a conversation you had. Maybe because she saw something she'd normally want to tell you about. Or maybe because she's replaying an interaction the two of you shared days ago. That mental replay is incredibly important. Why? Because people don't repeatedly revisit experiences that hold no emotional value. The mind naturally returns to what matters, and when that starts happening consistently, specific behavioral patterns begin to emerge, patterns that reveal far more than words ever could. The question is, what are those patterns? And which one instantly separates casual interest from genuine daily thoughts? The first sign is far more powerful than most men expect, and once you understand it, you'll never look at female behavior the same way again. But before we reveal it, there's something crucial you need to understand about how women emotionally invest in a man without ever saying a single word. And that's exactly where we're going next. Now let's uncover the first signs that she may already be thinking about you every single day. And the first one is far more subtle than most men expect. Sign one: she finds reasons to reconnect. Most men assume that if a woman likes them, she'll always make her intentions obvious. Female psychology rarely works that way. Instead of directly saying, "I've been thinking about you," she often creates small opportunities to reconnect. Maybe she sends a random message about something you discussed weeks ago. Maybe she forwards a funny video that reminds her of an inside joke. Maybe she asks a question she could easily find the answer to herself. On the surface, these interactions seem casual, but here's what most men never realize: the content of the message isn't always the point, the connection is. When someone frequently enters your thoughts, your brain naturally looks for reasons to bring that person back into your life. A woman who never thinks about you has no reason to create these moments. A woman who thinks about you often does. And that's why a seemingly meaningless text can reveal far more than a dramatic confession. What happens next may surprise you. Some women become so accustomed to thinking about a man that reaching out begins to feel natural, almost automatic. She doesn't even realize she's doing it. But here's where it gets interesting. The second sign is even stronger because it reveals what happens when you become part of her emotional world. Sign 2. She mentions things you told her. Long ago, think carefully about this one. Have you ever casually mentioned a small detail about your life, only for her to bring it up weeks later? Maybe she remembers the name of your childhood dog. Maybe she recalls a story you told once during a short conversation. Maybe she asks about an event you mentioned in passing. Most people forget information that carries no emotional relevance. The human brain is selective. It stores what feels important. And when a woman remembers tiny details about you, she's revealing something powerful. She wasn't just hearing you, she was paying attention. There's a huge difference. Attention is one of the strongest indicators of emotional investment. The more someone occupies your thoughts, the more closely you listen when they're speaking. That's why women who think about a man frequently often remember things that even surprise him. Suddenly, she'll reference a conversation you barely remember having, and you'll wonder how she recalled it. The answer is simple, because you mattered enough for her brain to keep it. Pay close attention because this changes everything. Many men spend all their energy looking for dramatic signs of attraction while completely missing these quiet indicators of emotional focus. And the next sign becomes even harder to ignore because it reveals what happens when you're no longer just someone she knows, but someone she starts unconsciously including in her daily life. And that's where female psychology becomes truly fascinating. By now, you've probably noticed something important. None of these signs involve dramatic declarations of love. That's because genuine emotional investment often develops quietly. Long before a woman openly expresses strong feelings, her behavior begins revealing what her mind is already doing behind the scenes. And the next three signs make that reality even clearer. Sign 3. She constantly connects things to you. Have you ever had someone instantly come to mind when you saw a particular movie, song, or place? That's not random. It's how emotional association works. The brain naturally links meaningful people to everyday experiences. When a woman thinks about you regularly, this starts happening more and more. She sees something funny and immediately thinks, he would laugh at this. She hears a song and remembers a conversation you had. She visits a restaurant and recalls a story you once told. Then she shares it with you, not because she planned to, because you were already in her thoughts. Most men never realize this. They assume she's simply making conversation, but often she's revealing something much deeper. You're becoming mentally connected to her daily experiences. And that's a powerful psychological shift, because once someone becomes part of your mental routine, their importance naturally grows. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Sign 4. She becomes curious about the small things. Many men think attraction is only about big questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's your relationship history? But women who think about a man often become fascinated by details that seem insignificant. What did you do today? How did that meeting go? Did you ever finish that project? How's your family doing? What happened with that friend you mentioned? At first glance, these questions seem ordinary, yet psychologically they're extremely revealing. Why? Because curiosity follows emotional investment. The more someone matters to us, the more interested we become in the details of their life. Not because we need the information, because we care about the person. And caring creates curiosity. This is why a woman who thinks about you frequently often asks questions that have no direct benefit to her whatsoever. She's not gathering facts, she's maintaining connection, and that's a distinction many men completely miss. But the next sign may be the most misunderstood of all. Sign 5, she occasionally pulls back. Now, this might sound strange. How can distance mean she's thinking about you? The answer lies in female emotional processing. When feelings begin growing stronger, many women become more self-aware. They start questioning what those feelings mean. They wonder whether they're becoming too attached. They analyze interactions. They replay conversations. And sometimes they intentionally create a little space. Not because they've stopped thinking about you, but because they're thinking about you even more. This is where many men make a critical mistake. They see temporary distance and immediately assume attraction is gone. Yet in some cases, the opposite is true. She's trying to understand emotions that are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. What happens next may surprise you, because the final two signs reveal something far deeper than curiosity or attention. They reveal emotional attachment itself. And once those signs appear, you're no longer just occupying her thoughts. You're beginning to influence her emotions in ways most men never recognize. Up to this point, we've explored signs that suggest you're frequently on her mind. But now we're entering a different territory, because the next two signs don't just reveal thoughts, they reveal emotional significance, and there's a huge difference between the two. A woman can think about many people, but she only becomes emotionally invested in a select few. That's why these signs are often the strongest indicators that you've become an important part of her inner world. Sign 6. She shares things. She doesn't share with everyone else. Think about the people you trust most. They're usually the people who know parts of your life that others don't. The same principle applies here. When a woman thinks about you every day, she gradually begins lowering emotional barriers. She starts revealing stories, opinions, fears, dreams, and experiences she normally keeps private. At first, the disclosures may seem small. Perhaps she tells you about a personal challenge. Maybe she shares a childhood memory. Maybe she admits an insecurity she rarely discusses. Most men focus on attraction signals while overlooking vulnerability. Yet vulnerability is often far more meaningful. Why? Because people protect what matters, and they only expose emotional weaknesses when they feel a certain level of comfort and connection. Pay close attention because this changes everything. A woman who shares deeper parts of herself isn't simply communicating information. She's inviting you into her emotional reality. And people rarely do that with someone who occupies little space in their mind. But here's where it gets interesting. The final sign is perhaps the most powerful of all, because it often appears before she fully understands her own feelings. Sign 7. Your mood starts affecting her mood. This is one of the strongest psychological indicators of emotional attachment. When someone becomes emotionally important, their emotional state begins influencing ours. If you're excited, she feels excited. If you're disappointed, she becomes concerned. If you're stressed, she wants to know what's wrong. If something great happens to you, she's genuinely happy for you. Not because she's being polite, because she feels emotionally connected. Most men never realize this. They assume attraction is measured by words. In reality, emotional influence is often a much stronger signal. When your happiness affects her happiness, something significant has changed. You've moved beyond casual interest. You've become emotionally relevant, and that's a completely different level of connection. What happens next may surprise you, because even these 7 signs don't tell the whole story. There's one final truth that ties everything together, a truth that explains why some men effortlessly stay in a woman's thoughts while others are quickly forgotten. And understanding that truth may completely change the way you view attraction, relationships, and female psychology forever. Let's uncover it. Now it's time to connect everything we've discussed. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Throughout this video, you've seen 7 behaviors that often reveal when a woman thinks about you every day. She finds reasons to reconnect. She remembers details most people forget. She associates everyday experiences with you. She becomes curious about your life. She occasionally pulls back to process her emotions. She shares personal parts of herself, and perhaps most importantly, your emotional state begins affecting hers. Individually, each sign is interesting. Together, they tell a much deeper story. Because attraction is rarely about one dramatic moment, it's usually about repeated mental and emotional investment. Most men are taught to focus on obvious signals. They wait for direct compliments, clear confessions, perfect certainty. But female psychology often operates beneath the surface long before those moments arrive. The truth is simple. People think about what emotionally impacts them, and they become attached to what consistently occupies their mind. That's why the real question isn't, does she like me? The deeper question is, am I creating meaningful emotional experiences when we interact? Because that's what keeps someone thinking about you. Not tricks, not manipulation, not mind games, genuine emotional impact. Most men never realize this. A woman may forget a clever line, she may forget an expensive gift, she may even forget specific conversations, but she rarely forgets how someone consistently made her feel. That's the hidden force behind attraction. And it's the reason some men remain unforgettable. They create moments that trigger emotion: comfort, excitement, curiosity, trust, anticipation. When those emotions become associated with you, thoughts naturally follow. And repeated thoughts often create stronger emotional bonds. But here's where everything changes. Many men become obsessed with decoding female behavior while ignoring the one thing they can actually control: themselves. The most attractive quality isn't desperation for answers. It's confidence, purpose, emotional stability, a fulfilling life that doesn't depend on anyone else's validation. Ironically, the men who focus on becoming stronger, wiser, and more fulfilled often become the very men women think about the most. Because genuine confidence creates a lasting impression, and lasting impressions create lasting thoughts. So if you've recognized several of these 7 signs in a woman, don't rush, don't force anything, observe, stay grounded, continue building a connection naturally. Let her actions reveal what her words may not yet say. Because when a woman consistently thinks about you every day, her behavior eventually tells the story. You simply need to know how to read it. And now you do. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our future insights into female psychology, attraction, relationships, and self-improvement. And now, tell me in the comments, which of these 7 signs have you noticed the most? I'd love to hear your experience. Until next time, stay observant, stay confident, and remember, the strongest signals are often the ones most people overlook.